Hey guys, Steve Gunter here. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today I want to talk about how real estate agents can launch a productive business in 2020. And whether you are an agent just starting out or maybe you're a vet looking to restart your business, hopefully this information is of value to you. I want you to come away with 3 main points from this video after we're done. The first is I want you to have a stop doing list. It's a remarkable concept that I read about maybe 10, 12 years ago from the great author and business teacher Jim Collins in his book Good to Great. And we're going to talk about that stop doing list and what that means in detail. Secondly, I want you to understand what are the activities that you should be focusing your time on. We call that the vital few on our team. And then lastly, I want you to know your limits. There's nothing like understanding what you're capable of and what you're not so capable of. But I want us to get through all of those points and hopefully you be able to take away from it something that you can apply today. This concept of the stop doing list originated from the author Jim Collins in his book Good to Great. For those of you who have read it, maybe you might want to open it back up and read it again. For those of you who have not, I strongly encourage you to purchase this book for your gift to yourself for this year in 2020. But in the book, Jim Collins talks about this idea where we oftentimes, as human beings, it's not just real estate agents, human beings in general, we oftentimes like to create this to-do list. And this to-do list is ever expanding. We oftentimes add things to it throughout the course of the day even. And our idea is that the busier we are, the more productive we are. And that is, of course, a myth, because that to-do list is oftentimes just a myriad of distractions, things that we do not necessarily have to do, but they are just things that we are doing that is going to make us feel like we're being productive. And the reality is that we have this wide breadth, this broad set of items that we believe are going to be the things that if we just get them right and if we check off all the boxes, that in fact we will see the type of results that we want to see. But of course, that's not the reality. What we really want to do is we want to create depth. And the only way to do that is to list the things that we have to stop doing. So as a real estate agent, as an example, maybe your stop doing list looks something like this. Maybe you're going to stop coming into the office when you first get in the morning and checking your email, hoping that there's something in that email that's awaiting your attention that's going to move you into production. Maybe you stop checking that email so often. Another thing you're probably going to stop doing is working so heavily on your social media platforms that I can assure you that it's not at your social media platforms or in your social media platforms where you're going to somehow create or scrub a number of buyers and sellers. That's not where they are. They're in the marketplace. That's where you want to meet them at. The marketplace is not on your social media platform. You're probably going to want to stop spending so much time doing all of the administrative duties that come along with being a real estate agent, because you understand that if you're going to be successful, you have to spend way more time and focus way more attention on the things that matter most. And so understanding that this stop doing list is just as important, in fact, more important than the to-do list, then that's a good start. Because once you start there, now you can say, all right, now I have a list of the things that I'm going to stop doing. I have nothing else to do other than the things that I have to focus my attention on. And so if you're going to remove those things off your plate, now you have to focus your attention on the things that matter most, the vital few. And let's talk about that next. There are only a few activities that matter most, and these are the vital few. When we engage in these few practices, they are responsible for 80% of our results. And that's where we want to spend our time. Now that we have our stop doing list, we have to replace it with the vital few activities that are going to help us achieve the kind of success that we look for or that we're looking for. And so let's say, for example, as a real estate agent, that one of your vital few practices is to make phone calls, cold calling. And maybe you're going to spend time calling expireds, and maybe you're going to spend time calling for sale by owners, and maybe you're going to spend time calling neighborhoods. This leveraged activity is one of your vital few activities that you have to engage in to ensure that you're hitting the kind of numbers that you want to hit, talking to the number of people that you need to talk to guarantee yourself a certain number of appointments that will lead to a certain amount of closings. This is a vital few type of activity. Maybe part of your vital few is meeting and speaking with and marketing to your sphere of influence. And so having a marketing campaign in place where you can talk to those people in a creative way. Maybe it's through the use of content. Maybe it's through the use of handwritten notes. Maybe it's through phone calls and one-on-one appointments. However you decide to go about doing so, you understand that this is a vital few activity because you know that these are the people who already know you and trust you. Maybe they like you. Sometimes they like you, sometimes they don't. But the idea is that they know you and they trust you. And so understanding that there are only a few things that matter. And when you engage in those few things, that will inevitably lead to the results that you seek. But here's the piece that matters most about engaging in the vital few practices. The vital few practices requires a certain amount of mental energy, and it requires a certain amount of depth. And when you're able to focus your efforts exclusively on those activities for a consistent amount of time, that is where the gold lies. You cannot simply say, well, I'm going to get on the phone, but I'm only going to call 30 people for today. Well, you may not talk to 30 people. You may talk to one person. You've called 30 people, but you've only spoken to one. And so, did you give yourself the type of depth that you needed in order to ensure success? You probably didn't. Maybe you said that, I'm going to reach out to my sphere of influence, but I'm only going to do it periodically, maybe every 6 months or so. Well, have you given yourself the kind of depth that you need in order to ensure the success of your practice? You haven't. And so you have to be willing to put in the work and sit and do the work for an extended period of time. And when you can do that, that is where the gold is. And so when we can focus our attention on the vital few things that matter most, we can expect to achieve exemplary results. Now let's move on to what it means to know your limits. We live in an age where a number of people are preaching and teaching their philosophy, their ideas on what you should be doing in order to create success in your business. Whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you're receiving your information, it's there. And the reality is that I'm certain that those people are not trying to steer you wrong. In fact, I believe that many of them have concrete information to share, and that could eventually work with time. However, I think it's also important to know your limits. Know what you're capable of and what you're not. Also, essentially stating to know what your weaknesses are. So let me give you an example. Let's say that there is someone out there suggesting that you should spend time making a lot of videos, that if you make more videos, that is what the consumer wants nowadays, and that is going to be your medium that you use in order to connect with those consumers. And you know, listen, it's an incredible medium that can scale, in fact. However, let's just also be practical. If you are not the kind of person who can commit to a type of practice such as that, and you are not as compelling in front of a camera, whether it be through providing informative information or even entertaining content, then it's probably not something that you should do. You could also be the kind of person who says, well, you know, I want to go and start a podcast and I want to create incredible content for the consumers out there in the marketplace. Well, again, I think you should do it, but only if you can. Essentially, know what you're capable of and what you're not capable of. However, I could also say the opposite is true as well. If you have the capability to do something like that, then you have to give it time. You have to be willing to stick in that driver's seat for the amount of time that it takes to produce the consistency and the type of value to the market where eventually you become noticed. But let me also add this. One of the things that many agents, and I'm going to go back to our cold calling example. Many agents would suggest that cold calling is not for me. I shouldn't do it, or I can't do it. It's just not who I am. And that's an interesting concept because I think all of us talk on the phone at some point of time during the course of the month with someone, whether it's our mother, boyfriend, brother, sister, whoever. But the fact is that not that you can't do it, it's simply more so a situation where you're fearful of doing it. And when we allow fear to be the reason why we cannot engage in an activity, that's not a good reason. That is not a good reason. And so knowing our limits has more to do with what is our talent level. Are we talented enough? Are we gifted enough to be able to engage in a certain activity or not? Do we have enough discipline to engage in a certain activity or not? Do we have the time to engage in a certain amount of activity or not? And so that's what knowing our limits means. It means that we are self-aware and we fully understand that we have certain strengths and we have certain weaknesses, and we want to operate more in our strengths. Thanks so much for tuning in. It was such a pleasure. I hope this video brings some value to you. Listen, if you are interested in more content, I hope you would subscribe. Also, for those of you who are just trying to get into the business or you are considering it. I oftentimes get questions and comments about what is the next thing for me to do? What do I need to do to try to get into the real estate business? It's been floating around in my head for X amount of time, and now I really want to commit to it. Well, I wrote in the description below, hopefully some nuggets that might be of help to you as you consider your next steps in getting into the real estate business. Lastly, listen, if you are a real estate agent in a Raleigh-Durham market and you are considering joining a team, we would love to have a conversation. Click on that link below and we can set up a private meeting with you. We would love to have a conversation with you about joining our team. We are always looking for good, motivated, inspiring people such as yourself. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you soon.